We have been learning about how taxonomists classify animals. The term classification means to group based on similar characteristics. So far, we have talked about cold-blooded animals and warm-blooded animals. Cold-blooded animals are animals that cannot regulate their body temperature. If it's cold outside, their body is cold. If it's warm outside, their body is warm. Warm-blooded animals, like humans, we have a constant body temperature. It doesn't matter if it's cold outside, our internal body temperature remains the same. We've also looked at the difference between a vertebrate and an invertebrate. Vertebrates are animals with backbones, and invertebrates are animals that don't have backbones. So far, we have looked at 5 groups of animals. Last year, remember, you studied invertebrates with insects. Our focus in this domain has mostly been on our vertebrates. Let's name the vertebrates together, starting with amphibians, mammals, birds, frogs, and reptiles. We can use the mnemonic device, all my best friends represent vertebrates, to help us name them all. So let's look at what we know. We know that all 5 vertebrate groups, as well as invertebrate groups, live within your community. You may have seen many animals in your community. Who can think of an animal that lives in your community? How would you classify the animal you just thought of, and why? Here is our purpose for listening. Animals from these 5 vertebrate groups live all over the world in many different habitats. Today, you will be hearing about vertebrate animals in 7 very different places. Listen for examples of animals in each of the 5 vertebrate groups: amphibians, mammals, birds, fish, and reptiles, and think about the characteristics that help us to classify them. All my best friends represent vertebrates. Now that you've learned about each vertebrate group, you know about many characteristics that taxonomists use to classify these animals. Who wants to try to name the 5 groups of animals that make up vertebrates in the animal kingdom? We have amphibians, mammals, birds, fish, and reptile, and they all make up the vertebrate group. So why do scientists classify organisms? Because there are so many living things on Earth, it gives scientists a way of studying them by showing their relationship. And how do they classify them? Remember, they look at common or shared characteristics. What are some of those common characteristics? You've learned that some animals are warm-blooded and others are cold-blooded. Some are vertebrates and others are invertebrates. You've also learned that there are many other ways to classify animals into smaller and smaller groups. The scientific classification system, taxonomy, uses these names: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, to describe groups from largest to smallest. When they classify animals, taxonomists compare and contrast animal habitats, the physical characteristics, the skin coverings, the feeding habits, and reproduction. Today, we're going to look at 7 different locations on planet Earth, one on each of the continents of the world. We will use our new skills to practice classifying a few of the animals that live in each place. So let's look at our continents and see if we can name them. First, up here where my red dot would be North America. Then we have South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, And finally, Antarctica down here at the bottom. Our first stop is the American desert. Here are some examples of animals you may find in this North American desert. The western diamondback snake, the Gila woodpecker, the desert bighorn sheep, the roadrunner. Now here's our roadrunner. You have the banded Gila monster. We have a bobcat, and we have a turkey vulture. Just by looking at these animals are you able to classify them. The bobcat and the sheep, they are both covered in fur, so we know that those are mammals. What about the Gila monster? It's a reptile, one of only 2 venomous lizards in America. What about the rattlesnake, which is also covered in scales? Yes, it is a reptile. It is venomous as well and is one of the few reptiles that gives birth to live young. So here we're looking at the southwestern part of the United States, and we are looking at this area here. The desert is usually, when we're talking about a map, most of the time we're looking at brown areas because that's showing where desert areas are. In the Sonoran Desert, it's not exactly in the brown, but it's right down here, sort of at the bottom of California, between California and Arizona, and this is the Baja of Mexico. So that's the area that we were talking about. Great job. Let's move on to the Amazon rainforest in South America. Native to the rainforest are the spotted jaguar, the green anaconda, the 3-toed sloth up here in the corner, the red-bellied piranha, and the blue and yellow macaw. You can see the macaw up at the top. We also have a pink-toed tarantula. I don't see the pink-toed tarantula. Oh, here's pink-toed tarantula. We have the caiman, which looks like a small crocodile. Remember that the anaconda and the caiman are both covered in scales. The bird should be the easy one to spot, the only one with wings and feathers, and that's the macaw. And the piranha should be familiar to you all because these are Puello's fish relatives. The jaguar and the sloth are both covered in fur, so that would make them mammals. We also know that mammals give birth to live young. Does this dark, hairy spider in the corner belong to one of the vertebrate groups we've studied? No, the pink-toed tarantula is actually an invertebrate. It's cold-blooded, but it has an exoskeleton, and it is a member of the arachnid group. So when we're looking at the rainforest, the Amazon rainforest, we're talking about South America. Okay, so here's South America, and the Amazon rainforest is this area here. So that's the area that we're talking about. Now let's move on. Let's look at the animals that make their homes high in the alpine mountains of Europe. What do you see in the background there on the rocks? The rock ptarmigans live in the Alps. So do the black alpine salamander, the marmot, the golden eagle, the Apollo butterfly. Here's the Apollo butterfly, the pine marten. Which one do you think is not a member of any of the vertebrate groups we've studied? That would be correct. It would be the butterfly. The butterfly is an invertebrate, and it is classified in the largest group of animals on Earth, the insects. The black alpine salamander, right here in front, shares characteristics with both a lizard and a frog. Think about how you would classify it. It's a moist, skinned amphibian, but an unusual one that lives only on land and gives birth to fully developed live young. What two-legged feather animals do you see? Yes, the birds are the pterygium and the golden eagle. What about mammals? Are there any fur-covered creatures in the Alps? Yes, we've got the marmot and the pine marten. So here's our two mammals. And this is the area we're talking about. We're talking about Europe and Italy, which is right here. And the Alps run across this region here, outlined in purple. The Ganges Delta of India on the continent of Asia is home to swamps, forests, and creeks. The animals that live there include the black-crowned night heron, here at the top, the wild boar, the olive ridley turtle. Looking for the turtle. Here we go, I guess. Here's our turtle. The Ganges river dolphin, the Indian python up here in the tree, the blue-eared kingfisher, the mugger crocodile, and the chital. Can you spot cold-blooded reptiles here? You bet. That would be the crocodile, the turtle, and the python. These are all representatives of the reptile group. Which ones are warm-blooded mammals? Yes, the boar, or the wild pig, and the chital, which is a common deer of the area. The polluted waters of the Ganges River have ruined the habitats for a number of animals, and this river dolphin is endangered because of the river's pollution. Remember, we talked about endangered in the last read aloud. Endangered means they are in danger of becoming extinct. And extinct means they are no longer living, like dinosaurs have become extinct. Only one of 4 river dolphin species in the world is a mammal, just like its ocean-loving relatives. The Ganges river dolphin is sometimes called the blind dolphin. Each of its eyes lacks a lens to give it clear vision, but it still uses its eyes to help it find direction. And of course, our feathery friends of the sky, the kingfisher and the heron, are both birds. So here's our 2 birds. And this is the area that we're talking about, where our 2 circles are. Okay. I bet you've seen pictures of many large game animals that make their homes in the savannas of Africa. They include the giraffe, find our giraffe, the elephants, the hyenas, here's our hyena, the wildebeest, the lion, the zebra, and the impala. All of these animals belong to the same group of vertebrate animals. What are they? Those are the mammals. Birds like the hornbill and the quilla live there as well. And venomous reptiles, snakes, like the gaboon and the black mamba, are deadly to their prey in the savannas. So talking about the savannas, here's the continent of Africa, and the orange area is what we're talking about. The Great Barrier Reef of Australia is home to many different sea animals. Animals here include the bottlenose dolphin, the anemone fish, the blue-spotted stingray, the box jellyfish, the black-tipped reef shark, and the leatherback sea turtle. Is the jellyfish really a fish? Who remembers? No, in spite of its name, the jellyfish is an invertebrate and has no gills. Be sure to notice the jellyfish's many long tentacles. So, do you think the anemone fish is a fish or not? Yes, it is indeed a fish, also called the clownfish because of its colorful markings, and it lives among the tentacles of other invertebrate, the sea anemone. This would be like Nemo. The sea turtle belongs to the reptile group, and you probably remember that the dolphin is a milk producing mammal that breathes with its lungs. How about the shark? Yes, it is a fish too. It breathes through gills, and unlike the dolphin, does not provide milk for its young. And the stingray? See, we find our stingray. The stingray is a fish too. It is a relative of the shark. So Australia is way down here, and the barrier reef is off this side. So it's over here where this red dot is, or if I zoom in closer, it's on the northeast side of the continent of Australia. Finally, let's look at Antarctica, the southernmost continent and one of the coldest places on Earth. Emperor penguins live in its icy waters along with blue whales and humpback whales. Leopard seals, skua, and snow petrels spend half of the year in darkness in this frozen coastal region. Only two vertebrate animal groups are found on the land in Antarctica. What are they? That's right, mammals and birds. You learn that these two groups also share another common characteristic as well. Mammals and birds are both warm-blooded. The energy in the food they eat is used to keep their bodies warm and to keep them from freezing. That's why warm-blooded animals have to eat a lot more than cold-blooded animals. So here we're talking about Antarctica. These Antarctic animals survive in harsh frozen conditions, and they are largely dependent on krill, tiny shrimp-like crustaceans with exoskeletons that live in the waters beneath the ice packs. They are the primary or main source of food for the predators of Antarctica. As you can imagine, living in the extreme cold of Antarctica presents a major challenge to cold-blooded animals. A few fish have adapted in an interesting way to survive in the cold waters surrounding Antarctica. The ice fish has a special chemical in its body that acts like antifreeze and keeps it from freezing. A few invertebrates have found other interesting ways to survive in the cold temperatures of Antarctica. Some mites survive by living in the fur of mammals or in the feathers of birds, close to the warmth of their warm-blooded host. Now you've seen a sample of the animals that live on each of the 7 continents. There are so many interesting facts about Earth's animals. Before I go, let's share one interesting fact that you have learned about vertebrate animals. Think for a moment about an interesting fact that you wish to share. It's been so much fun for me to be with you again. I'm so proud of all that you have learned about the animal kingdom over the past few days. I look forward to seeing you again soon. In the meantime, I encourage you to keep your eyes open. As you see an animal or read about an animal, think about how you would classify it. Next time we're together, perhaps you can tell me about your discoveries. Until then, goodbye.